Hello, thank you for stopping by the channel. I recently came across a pretty decent stack of PC games, and I thought I would share. I'm pretty certain all of these are going to be playable. They don't seem to have codes associated with them, which is great. I'm usually very cautious when I look at old games like this, because I know that after a certain time, usually early 2000s, they started having codes shipped with a lot of them, and as a result, they become functionally useless if you don't have the code. So these are a lot of 90s CD-based games, which had a really great pool of games. I was in college during those years, and I know I had a pretty good collection back then. But pretty excited to get back into some of these because there were some really awesome properties back then that we don't see a lot of these days. I also have some duplicates in these piles, which is something I'm going to certainly have to find a home for. But happy to grab these. When I had the opportunity to acquire these, I did a quick edit initially, and then this is what I ended up with. So let's get started. First, I found a pinball game. It's just a simple pinball game from a company called eGames, but it's unopened. And from the looks of the packaging, I don't expect there are going to be any branded pinball tables with this, but it is pinball, and it's something I seem to really like. I just did a review of the Pinball Wizard, actually, which is a game that just came out on Steam recently. I'll link to that video in the description. I found also Ms. Pac-Man Quest for the Golden Maze. I don't have a particular love of Pac-Man one way or the other, but there are far more Pac-Man games out there than I ever expected there would be. This is one of them. Copy of Armada Wing Commander. I know Wing Commander was a really popular space dogfighting game in the 90s. There were a fair amount of games for that property, and there was at least one movie. I do have a PC flight stick, so it'll be interesting to give this one a try and see what it's like. Got a copy of Starfleet Command, which is a Star Trek game that is a tactical experience as opposed to just, I think, commanding one ship. Obviously, when we boot it up, we'll figure that one out, but there was a lot of Star Trek games that came out back then. Some were actually quite good. I found Enter the Matrix, which is a game that I reviewed, I think, on Xbox not too long ago. I didn't actually ever see this on PC. To be truthful, it was kind of rough on the Xbox. I love it, and it's awesome, but it was rough to handle and difficult in places where it shouldn't be. It was rushed. But I'm really interested to see what differences there might be with this version of the game. And we're talking really early 2000s, so man, I'm looking at this and I'm wondering if it even has joystick support. That could make for a really interesting experience. Game called Full Throttle. This was a LucasArts game, and LucasArts had a spectacular run of properties in the 90s and 2000s. We had a ton of Star Wars games, of course, but they had a ton of these point-and-click properties that were really unique and interesting to play. This was actually one of the more polished games in the collection of LucasArts games that I've played over the years. And I'm looking at this disc, and I'm actually thinking that this might be one of my duplicates. I know I have this game, or had it at one point. If I still have my disc in my folder, this will be a duplicate, but you play a biker, and there's a humorous sort of adventure that goes along with you driving around on your motorcycle and solving crimes or puzzles, I suppose. But very popular, was really well received. I'm happy to find it. SimCity 3000. SimCity came out in the 80s. In this case, this particular game, you're building and maintaining a city in the future. I played SimCity, the first game, way back on the Commodore 64. I'm sure this one is a technological advancement. I love the Commodore 64 game. I played it a lot when I was a kid. I can only imagine how much better SimCity 3000 is going to be. Another sim game, Sim Tower. It's just another SimCity game in the list. They went through a whole bunch of different iterations. SimCity, there was SimCity in the Future, of course. This is restricted to one particular building. I mean, they did a lot to try to vary the property enough for you to manage different aspects of, well, life, I suppose. I never played this particular one before, but I did hear of it. And it'll be nice to close the loop on this one, figure out what it's like. Thief the Dark Project. I think I have a version of this, or at least one of the subsequent games, on one of the modern consoles. This one, I believe, was credited as the first, or one of the first games to utilize a really good stealth mechanic in gameplay. Apparently they did it right here, and it was the first time that it really stuck out for people. It really worked, and they made a franchise off it. Some game called One Must Fall 2097. This appears to be some sort of a robot fighting game. I have no idea if it's any good, but I'll certainly give it a try. Star Wars game. Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. I think I might have booted up this game years back, but I do believe it's probably not very good in terms of a game. There were a lot of games that came out when that Star Wars picked up with that trilogy in the early 2000s, and I know a bunch of them were pretty poor. I think this is part of that list, but we'll have to give it a try. Witch Haven 2. This appears to be a first-person shooter, but it's a medieval setting. You have an axe you're running around with, I guess. How much more in detail it goes, or how many different weapons it has, how close it is to Doom, who knows. But I'll have to put it on the list. We'll give it a try. I've played a lot of first-person shooters recently. Prince of Persia 3D. Prince of Persia was really popular when it first came out in the early 80s. It was a groundbreaking game in a lot of ways. How it made the translation to 3D, who knows? But this was also years before the game came out on, the 360, I think it was? So this will be very curious to see what it's like. Unreal Tournament Game of the Year Edition. Unreal was widely popular, and I'm looking at this and I'm saying to myself, Unreal Tournament, fantastic. I will at least give it a try. I don't know if it can actually connect online and play with other people, but maybe a sort of a LAN thing. Maybe I can get some sort of a local network going. We'll see. The Incredibles When Danger Calls. I have no particular like of this property one way or the other, but it is a superhero game, and I'm willing to bet you can play different characters, so we'll have to give it a try. Warcraft. I never played Warcraft. We're talking way back in the late 90s Warcraft, not World of Warcraft Online. This was a strategy game. When this series came out, it was Warcraft, StarCraft, and Diablo. I played StarCraft. I played a lot of Diablo 2. Never really got into Warcraft, so we'll have to give this one a try. It looks pretty interesting. Also, there's a copy of Warcraft 2, Tides of Darkness. I don't know if this is an expansion on Warcraft or if it's actually just Warcraft 2, but yeah, interesting to see where the game progressed. I know this was very popular in the 90s when it came out. It was one of the big games that people were playing. Just, it wasn't a train that I was on in particular. King's Quest V. I played some of the very early King's Quest games. This one is, this is on CD, so this was considerably different than the floppy drive games that came before it. But King's Quest is pretty popular, so we'll have to give it a try. I was super excited to get these. Descent 1 and 2. These games were awesome. I remember these in the 90s, something fierce. People loved these. They were so popular on PC. I'm really surprised they didn't seem to get any modern versions of this. So I'm going to review these pretty soon. I was super excited to find these. I mean, out of all the games I could have found, to get these two in particular, just knowing how popular they were back in the day, I think it's going to be great to try them on a modern system and see how well they run. Roller Coaster Tycoon. This is its expansion pack, or it's an expansion pack of 2 games, that is. But I do think this might just be Roller Coaster Tycoon, the core game, because I'm looking at the disc and I don't see the expansions on it. Still, it does actually have another disc with expansions in it, so this is the Corkscrew Follies expansion. I used to play Roller Coaster Tycoon back in the day. It's a pretty simple concept overall. You're running an amusement park and you get to build your own roller coasters, and you get to determine how much you charge for tickets, the type of snacks you have, that sort of stuff. It's different and it's fun, so yeah, happy to give this one a try. I'll definitely have a review out for this one soon. Got a copy of Riven, which is a sequel to Myst. It's very possible I already have it. But, copy of Riven right here, followed up by a copy of Myst. This was pretty interesting. I actually think I have this one already. If I don't have my core version, well, there are a whole bunch of duplicates here anyway. I got a copy of Death Rally. There's also, well, I know nothing about Death Rally, but I also have a PC Gamer demo disc. This is something that they used to ship with magazines back in the day. Pretty happy to get this, actually. I mean, looking at a demo disc and just seeing, this is going to advertise probably 5 to 10 different PC games. Totally worth a look. glad to have this one. Have to give it a try and see what other things out there might exist for me to go try. And then I have some things that I know are duplicates. Another copy of Myst. Yet another copy of Myst. Myst 3 Exile, which I have the full box that I found, I don't know, half a year ago. Age of Empires 2. I know I have the collection of Age of Empires. This is excellent. This is just, Age of Empires is a top-notch game. It's fantastic. And then finally, the Omega Stone Riddle of the Sphinx 2. I actually picked this game up not too long ago in a similar type of pickup. Fairly certain it's on one of my more recent pickup videos from the last couple months. Still, it was hard for me to pass up games that were in decent condition that somebody might appreciate. If I didn't pick these up, I'm pretty sure they would have been tossed into a landfill. So, happy to keep them out of there, at least for a period of time. And hopefully I can find some good homes for these. A lot of great games out there on the PC, especially from the 90s, that are worth people taking some time to look at. Great. Well, thank you so much for stopping by to take a look. Thank you for giving me a little bit of your time. And if you like the channel, please like and subscribe and all that good stuff. And thanks for stopping by. Hope to catch you on another video.